Jen Bricker was born with challenges. She was born without legs, but that has never stopped her, not even for a minute. Am I right? Has it never stopped you?
Not really. I mean, I just never saw it that way. I wasn't raised with that kind of mentality.
I love that about you. You're so inspirational. You never let it stop you. And where does that come from, that belief, like I can do anything, and just because I have a disability, it's not a disability in my mind at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, my parents, God totally put me in the right place when I was adopted, and they were the parents for me. That's where it was supposed to be. It was in the middle of nowhere, cornfields and cows, but it was where I was supposed to be. And it was just that mentality of how they raised me. I mean, there wasn't going to be any other way. It's not like they stood on some platform and we're going to be so awesome and make a point to raise her this way because she's our different child, but she's going to be amazing. It wasn't even like that. It was like, no, why couldn't she do whatever she wants to do? And beyond that, you're amazing, you're powerful, you're empowering, you have a great head on your shoulders. If you put your mind to something, girl, you're going to do it. Like, it was just, they really meant it, and they backed it up with their actions.
Tell me about the beginning of your life and maybe how you see God working in it.
Right. So from the outside, it's like you were born without legs, left in the hospital, put up for adoption. They didn't even give you a name, all these things, and they sound so harsh, so ugly, so I guess tragic. Some people say, I hate that word, but this is what people say. And I guess I get it. I mean, I really don't get it the way other people do, but I can understand how rough that sounds. And that is the kind of God we serve, that you can have something that looks so bad on the outside, and he can turn anything around. And that's amazing. And I just think the least likely person from the outsider's perspective, right? Like born without legs, left for whatever, and no name and all this stuff that sounds so awful. But then he has such purpose. Like, being born without legs was not just some random, like, oh, I forgot to put legs on this one. Okay, whatever. That's not the kind of God that we know. And that's not how he did that on purpose and for a purpose. I have to not have legs in order to do the things that he's called me to do, to go to the places. The reason I have favor, everything in my whole timeline of my life is crazy, amazing, and creatively planned perfectly in order for me to go to all these places and for him to get his point across in a unique way. It's amazing.
You're a living example of, sometimes you ask God to change your circumstances and he doesn't, and he changes your perspective. And it's your perspective that empowers you, I think, to make such a difference and be such a strong voice. You say, and I couldn't believe this when I read it, but people would say to you, hey, if you could go back and if you could say, God, can you give me legs? Would you want to do that? What do you say?
Right, yeah, I really thought about that when I was younger. I gave it a fair thinking through, so I didn't just have a phony answer. And every time I kept coming back to no, because would it make my life easier in certain areas? Would I get to wear super cute shoes because I love shoes? The irony.
I hear you're a shoe enabler, so maybe we should go shopping later.
100%. I will tell you to buy them every time. Every time. So, always. But it would be nicer, easier in certain areas, a little bit more vanity in some areas, and I do love fashion. But at the end of the day, if it comes down to me being able to touch people's lives and allow God to change lives through me, then how on earth could I say, yes, I want legs? It's not a fair trade. There's no way.
Your perspective is amazing. And I know from reading your story, you would not be the person that you are today if you grew up in the family you were born into. We're going to cover how you met your sisters later on, but one of your sisters really distanced herself from her family, saying it was kind of an abusive environment.
Right.
You were actually in a family, your adoptive family, who literally said there was no can't. There was no word can't. You cannot use that word. What was that like?
Yeah. So taking can't out of your vocabulary is far beyond just saying that. Because if you were just saying that, oh, don't use the word can't, or Jen, you were born this way for a reason. God doesn't make mistakes. Those are just cliche and corny, and they have no value. But when you put your money where your mouth is and you back that up with your actions, that's where the power comes. And that's what my parents did. So it was a lifestyle of don't look at something like I wanted to go roller skating. And nothing about that seemed odd to me. I was just like, well, everybody's roller skating and I want to win that limbo. So I'm going to roller skate. And they're just like, okay, well then we'll just put the skates on your hands. Instead of saying, well, you might get hurt. You're really small, because I was young, you know, so I was really small, and it's dangerous. And how are you going to do that? That was not their immediate answer. They didn't automatically go to negativity. They automatically went to, well, we'll just figure out how to make it work for you. That's it. And so that's the lifestyle, and that's the power in that.
And that's how you live now.
Right. Yeah, because it's just it's just who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you're an aerialist and a power tumbler, and you always had an interest in that world of gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
You were a big fan of an Olympic medalist, Dominique
Moceanu.
Moceanu. And years later, you're 16, you say to your parents, hey, who are my birth parents? I want to know. Can you tell me a little bit about that story, how you found your family?
Yeah, so I asked my mom right before I turned 16 if she knew anything about my biological family, and to my surprise, she says yes, which God totally had to plant that idea in my brain, because up until that point, I was never interested about my biological parents. I knew they were from Romania, and I knew everything was open, and it was fine. I didn't need to know anything else. And my family wasn't secretive. It's not like, oh, I bet they're harboring something about my family. Yep, they definitely are. No, it's like the opposite. And so the fact that I even thought to ask them that is totally God. It's ridiculous. And so my mom says, actually, yes. And I'm like, what? I mean, like, glitching here. And then she tells me my biological last name would have been Moceanu. And immediately, I knew what that meant. And I was like, oh, what?
And you didn't think it could have been any Moceanu.
No.
You knew it was her.
It's not like there's a lot of people with that last name.
Well, okay,
You
good
know?
point, yep.
No, it was an automatic, boom, direct to the point. Oh, she's my sister. And that was crazy and amazing. And I discovered I had a younger sister, Christina, and her and Dominique grew up together. And she looked like my twin. I mean, my twin, my face with legs. It was crazy. My sisters and I would have loved to have grown up together, but we all agree that, you know, I was definitely spared an abusive home. I was spared, you know, it was a very male-dominated, Eastern European, Romanian, and physically abusive home. So, and also beyond that, they could have never in their lives dreamed that I would be able to do something. Because it's still in foreign countries today, the countries that I've mentioned that I've been to that I should not have favor, someone like me without legs, they don't even come to public. I mean, literally, they like hide.
Right.
And so,
And they don't educate people with
No.
disabilities. It's just terrible.
and they don't make anything, of course, forget accessibility. That's hilarious. That's cute. In other countries, no. Like, I just already know I'm going to be walking and getting out of my chair and doing all that stuff, which is fine. But you just have to know when you're in certain places, it's just not going to be the United States. And that's just it.
And your adoptive parents, I remember that, you know, you wrote in your book that the doctor said to them, she's never going to be able to sit up.
Right.
And your dad was like the person who never takes candy either. He was like, not my daughter. And he goes to other doctors and he finds a way.
That's right.
They fought for you. It's almost a picture of that heart of God, right? He fights for us. You know, he advocates for us. I think what's amazing about your story, and you've probably heard this 1,000 times, is, you know, that we can feel sorry for ourselves, and we can get discouraged by the smallest things. You know, I'm aging, or I have arthritis, or whatever it is. And then we meet you, who's just with this can-do attitude, you know, and you have a disability that we couldn't imagine ever having lived with, never having done it. For someone who's watching, maybe who's been stuck in their circumstances, feeling maybe sorry for themselves or discouraged or disheartened, what would you say to them today?
Well, and let me just be clear how perfect I am not. And I do wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and it's a choice every single day. We have to choose to be happy every single day. We have to choose to fight through it and own the day, not let it own us, right? So that is a very, realistic thing, but I just want people to really take away that they are significant. Every one of us have gifts and talents and abilities that are for us, like our fingerprint, unique to us. And there is equal value in that, and there's power in that. There's power to change a life. And people think that because their gifts and talents don't look like mine or somebody else's, or someone that they maybe put up on this pedestal, that theirs aren't significant, or it's just certain people that are made to inspire people and change people's lives. But that's not true. It is going to look different. We need a hand and a nose and an eye and all that to make a body, but they're equally as significant, whether it's listening or talking or being artistic or good at math. All of those things can touch someone's life when you're sharing and you're being open and vulnerable to someone.